You're welcome to this storytelling session. Sangra Ngra. This is a sequel to the Cup of Corn of Destiny, Ashanga Tanke'e story and song. You want to watch that particular story before this one. And if you remember, in that story, Ashanga Tanke'e was judged and found guilty of violating harvest laws when he brought home a cup of corn left behind on his farm by a thieving monkey. As required by the one we will refer to here as evil king, he was executed by Menang, who sent him plunging into the body of a waterfall called Afoke. Now, the death of Ashanga left the people in deep pain. They had witnessed other executions before, living in vain hope that each would be the last. The people were attuned to following their leaders' dictates, but in this particular case, it was so disproportionate. The punishment to the crime that Ashanga committed was so disproportionate. And to them, this was yet another sad example of how death could befall anyone at any time for any reason. The execution of Ashanga sparked murmurs of protest as villagers began to question their justice system in secret family and solidarity groups, where they were certain that snippets of their discussions, which normally were dissimulated in proverbs and other adult-only discourse, would not filter out to evil king's spies. Understand that the village was not made up of cowards, no, but rather of people who had a deep respect for authority and order ingrained in them from childhood. Through the initiation rites into adulthood, it was expected of the chief to wield much power. What was not expected was for the chief to use Ifuo to wield injustice, whereas the institution of Ifuo was conceived to do just the opposite. Despite the prospect of death looming over the villagers like an evil shroud, people started challenging the system in significant ways. The first person to openly challenge the status quo was Taabifuo. He was a no-nonsense man from a prominent family. On the fateful day he challenged the system, Taabifuo had gone out to tend to his raffia palm trees and was returning home, a large calabash of palm wine over his shoulder. It so happened that Menang was on a mission late that morning. However, Taabifuo did not come across Muobu, which would have signaled the arrival of Menang and given him time to hide his wine. As Taabifuo turned a corner, there was Menang, coming from the opposite direction. It was established practice that Menang never saw wine without confiscating it. Taabifuo did not panic, however. He carefully set down the wine by the side of the path and stepped aside, as he was expected to do anyway. What he did next was a first in the history of encounters with Menang. As Menang came closer, eyes on the calabash of wine, Taabifuo stated in a challenging and hostile voice, "Dare you touch it? Dare you touch it? You and I will wear the same ntum if you dare." Well, the ntum is the loincloth that goes around the loins, yeah? When a bad thing happens in the presence of two, the one who survives will live to tell the story, spirit or not. Dare you touch it? Menang looked around and saw none of its slaves. Uncertainly, Menang dangled its wangbigi, the wooden thing he carries around that serves both as weapon and harvesting tool, and went past Taabifuo and the calabash of palm wine. As he lifted the wine back onto his shoulders, Taabifuo saw Menang's servants emerge from a bend. He stomped ahead and, mouth agape, they all gave way. He took his wine home. Menang's servants knew they would be in big trouble, not only with Menang, but also with the palace. Just how big the trouble was, they would come to find out when news of the confrontation between Menang and Taabifuo reached Evil King. Menang was a masquerade, you would understand, a spirit that could not be questioned. Evil King rose in a rage against the servants who were as dispensable as slaves. Evil King ordered Menang's unfortunate servants to each bring 100 calabashes of palm wine to the palace within 3 days. The poor men did not own enough palm trees to produce a tenth of that amount of wine in the set time. They resorted to stealing wine from villagers' palm trees in the heart of the night. The wine losses angered the villagers, of course. After toiling night and day for 3 good days, and despite the support of their families and supplementing with theft, none of the men was able to supply more than half of the requested wine. 8 days later, the men were ordered to report to Ifuo's den, where they were accused of cheating the palace out of its wine. The punishment was death at the Afokwe. The sentence was executed that same day, and for the next 1 month, the villagers shunned the waters of Afokwe as they turned red with blood. As for Taabifuo, intelligence soon reached him from reliable sources in the palace that there was a plot to assassinate him and his entire family. He hastily planned for their safety. One night, dozens of masked assassins, brandishing machetes, visited Taabifuo's home and the homes of his close relatives, only to find the residences deserted. Smoke seeped through the thatched roofs from heavy logs of wood burning in the huts, giving the impression that people were living in them. They must have fled 2 or 3 nights before. It was a couple of months before news filtered back into the village that they had fled Evil King's wrath by going into exile in another village. News of their escape infuriated Evil King, and he took out his anger on whoever committed the least transgression, including his counselors and palace guards. Heads kept rolling down the Afokwe precipice, poisoning the waters downstream.